how are you doing tonight?
I'm super.
Yeah, I know you've been busy lately, so thank you for meeting with me to go over your self as a gamer and your history in Legend Gaming and everything. Want to take a moment to thank everyone for tuning in to the Legend Gaming Spotlight. Tonight we are meeting with Drahl, founder and I guess you could say longest running member of Legend Gaming.
I prefer the term Godfather.
Just make them an offer they can't refuse. They'll have to refer to you as such.
Yep. Or have them killed. In this business, that's what you have to do.
Yeah, it is kind of a dog-eat-dog game world, I suppose.
Yeah, and we've survived for, well, we're going on almost 6 years now, so we're, I guess we've been the big dog so far, but we're getting old.
Yeah, we play nice with a lot of people, but sometimes somebody has to be stepped on.
I know this dog is getting old. When you introduced me, I was going to tell you could introduce me as a former gamer. It doesn't seem like I have time to do it anymore.
Yeah, today's one of my days off, and I ended up playing, I think the last 40 minutes of a game. That was it for today so far.
I had a special beta weekend, and I've logged maybe 2 hours. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I would have logged at least 40 hours, 50, 60 hours in 2 days, or 3 days.
It gets rough when you start getting older. I mean, you're busier than I am, so I don't have as much of an excuse for not not managing to find some time for it.
You know, even in my real life travels, I don't think I've ever met anyone as busy as me. I haven't met anyone that leaves the house at 5:30 in the morning and doesn't see it again until sometimes 5:30 the next morning, or at bare minimum 10 o'clock at night.
It's definitely a long stint. I wouldn't want to do it. I don't think I could do it. I think I'd go crazy.
I'm right on the edge of lunacy. Complete lunacy.
Well, hopefully you can hold it together for a while. Guess I won't use up too much of your time then, and I can get to some of our questions. I've got some questions I ask everybody, and some other questions for some of the membership.
Super. I'm here. Let's do this.
All right. Zed wants to know, how did it all start for you and for Legend Gaming?
Painful. I'm sure he wants more elaboration than that, but in 2006, I got tired of leading my community over in World of Warcraft. I think at that time I was leading AOD, and we had just finished the Burning Crusade. We were going for World First. We definitely didn't get World First, but I do believe we got Server First, being on Stormscale, which was a big server. But anyway, I was done. I was just completely dead. I'd been leading EverQuest guilds and just transitioned from EverQuest to Dark Age of Camelot, running 12 to 18-hour days, just, trying to be the best, being the best. And I was just absolutely worn out. And I wanted to, I told myself I'm retiring from hardcore gaming. I'm still going to be a hardcore gamer, but not in the leadership role. I really just kind of want to sit back and let someone else lead and let me just kind of follow and enjoy the sights. Because when you're leading, you don't have time to enjoy the sights. You don't have time to enjoy leveling. You don't have time to enjoy questing. You're all the way to the top as quick as possible so you can get your hardcore progression group going. And it was just it was tearing me up. So I was looking at this new game called Age of Conan. I said, this looks like a pretty, decent game. Boy, was I wrong. But that's neither here nor there. And I said, I'm just going to go find me a nice little casual guild to join. Maybe I'll find a guild full of role players. They're pretty casual. I don't have to worry about progression and hardcore and die-hard PvPers that want me to play 18 hours a day. So I came across a little guild called Hand of Set. It was led by a woman named Nikosi, and she looked pretty hardcore in her looks, but she was, she looked like, a typical role player. And she had a 30-something-year-old, or maybe 30-something-year-old woman, and they were two women leading this guild. I'm like, there's no way this is going to be a hardcore raid guild. I'm joining them, and I'm going to be a nobody. And that's how it went for the first 2 weeks, until someone, I don't even remember the person's name, found out one of my aliases over in WoW that joined under a completely different name, and found out that I'd been, was one of the top guild leaders over there and had been really big in EverQuest and had, been top in Dayak and so forth. So word got around Hand of Sat, and all of a sudden I was pretty much kind of being pushed back into an officership role, and ended up taking the PvP leader spot after a few months of haggling from Sanakti. Well, and then I said, no big deal. I'm just going to lead PvP. I can do that. At least it's not like I'm leading a guild. But, as the story goes, eventually leading PvP turned into being part of the guild leadership council, which turned into being one of the 3 leaders, the trifecta as they called it, and then eventually being co-leader with Synocti when our 3rd leader was gone, and then ended up being sole leader when Synocti stepped down. So, before the release of the game, years before the game even came out, I found myself leading by myself again. The most popular and arguably the most popular pre-release guild in history, Hand of Set. So I was like, well, crap, here I am again. And needless to say, long story short, from that pretty much January 2009, was it 2008? January 2008, and I got together and realized what I had here, what I thought was going to be a casual guild of role players, ended up being a guild full of cutthroat, hardcore, baby-eating PvPers and raiders. So I realized, well, I've got a good group here, and I hate that I've lost my good EverQuest group. I hate that I've lost my good WoW group. I never could keep them together, and, so what I need to do is start a multi-gaming community that keeps us all together, game the game. And so that's how Legend Gaming was born. I took my top leaders and Hand of Set, which was Synocti, who had stepped down, and Zenith, who was kind of becoming one of my top officers, and I said, let's form a council, and let's start Legend Gaming, and branch out to other games, and thus the birth of Legend Gaming.
You're not allowed to retire.
I really want to. I've done it before. One of these days, I'm getting gray from this,
It's whole leadership thing's rough.
Yeah, it's been 10 years, 1999 since EverQuest. Yeah, it's been 15 years of hardcore leading. I'm getting old. That's older than some of our members.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely right. I mean, any of the leadership positions don't really allow you any time to play the game and enjoy it, to the full extent you would normally do so.
I did manage to get top level in Age of Conan by the grace of God. One of the first people to do it. Not the first, but one of the first. But probably would have been the first if I didn't have to do so much guild stuff. But once I got top level, I mean, it really was to the point where I'd log in and spend 4 to 5 hours working. Moved from one spot, just handling diplomacy and administration and stuff like that. Mailbox was full of mail from other guilds.
Yeah, and you mentioned some of your gaming history. And what other MMOs you've played. But where did you get your start in gaming, and which MMO has been your favorite?
Well, in gaming in general or MMO gaming?
Both.
Well, I mean, I guess we can consider the old Nintendo gaming. Actually, it went further back than that to Atari. I played some Atari games, which I couldn't even tell you the name of. Of course, Nintendo, Mario, and pretty much any war game where you had Commando and Guerrilla Warfare. I love those games, but again, they were very arcade-ish, But I guess that's where I got my gaming fix, was playing those little arcade games and going down the street and spending $50 a night as a 8, 9, 10-year-old in an arcade. But as far as MMOs go, I started MMO gaming in 1999, I believe, with the original EverQuest. And to this day, that is my favorite PvE game and overall game. I guess my favorite PvP game would be Dark Age Camelot. Still can't find a PvP game to hold up to that. And I'm wondering if they will ever make one again just like that. They said Elder Scrolls were going to be like that. It's not.
I don't know, there's something about the first MMO or first couple of MMOs that you play that always kind of sets a certain bar for you.
Yeah, I don't think it's so much as a lot of people say, well, you're still in love with EverQuest or you're still in love with Daoc because those were the first to expose you to that kind of gaming. EverQuest didn't really have hardcore PvP, so certainly didn't have Realm versus Realm because Dark Age Camelot invented Realm versus Realm or faction versus faction type PvP. So, EverQuest had a little bit of faction versus faction, but it was just, mostly PvE. The PvP servers were not as popular, or were really not that popular at all, but you look at Dark Age Camelot, which was built around the faction versus faction PvP, and it was widely successful, but it was done almost to perfection. But people say, well, the only reason you like these games is because they were the first to introduce it, but if you really sit down and look at the mechanics, no other game has ever been able to do, especially what the original EQ did, as far as immersion And as far as just the combat system and the challenge, I mean, World of Warcraft's hardest raids, it's almost like they cheat now. They have to create these stupid abilities and these god-awful things that really, once you memorize them, aren't that hard. Whereas in EverQuest, a little bit different. You know, it was just difficult, and it was long, and it was just gruesome, you know, tiring, gruesome fights. So it was just, even if you knew how to do the fight, it still was going to take you hours with a solid 200 people, and you know, that you don't see that in gaming anymore. You got these guys, they got their ventrilos now, they got their team speaks, and they've got their everything set up. But back in 1999, when we were rating the gods in EQ, there was no such thing as voice, you know, interaction. It was all done in chat, and you were the raid leader. God bless them, were managing 200 people as opposed to 40 or 15 or 24 now. And it was just amazing to be able to see what we could do then, even better than what we can do now. It's very strange. I almost kind of sound like an old man talking about when we used to walk to school in the snow, but that really is the way I kind of look at it.
Uphill both ways.
Absolutely. With 200 people with no voice.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a difference between it just being the first game and being the best game to do something.
Yeah, and it really was the best. I mean, I can sit down and look at a game from a unbiased perspective, and there's just not any good games. I'm not saying there's no good games out there. I'm saying that there are none that really match the fever of those original games. Now, granted, the genre was new, so people were more excited about it, but I mean, the only game that really could come close is obviously WoW, and it's obviously lived and done amazing things in its time, but really there's nothing else out there that really inspires me. May inspire others, may inspire people listening to this will say, well, Drahl's absolutely batshit crazy, because obviously this game is awesome, and he just doesn't know that, maybe, but not to me.
Yeah, I think I've always felt that one of the issues is that a lot of the modern games try to appeal to a much more general fan base. They try to basically cast a very wide net, a whole bunch of casual people.
There you
which,
go.
You know, I'm usually a more casual gamer myself, so in most respects, so I can't really say I'm not saying anything against casual players, but they try to grab so many different people, including a lot of casual players. So like you said, they make the raids and a lot of the content a lot easier, which tends to push off the people that get really passionate and dedicated to the games.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with, you know, appeasing casual players. Hell, that's what I am now. That's what I've become in my old age, but it really is to the point that you still got a good group of people out there that are still in their college years or late high school years that will be hardcore if given the opportunity to be hardcore. And obviously, I don't want to use my spotlight as a hardcore versus casual debate, but, you know, that really, to answer that question the best, that's why I could never list a game that's been made past the year 2000 as my favorite, just because none of them have really just lit me on fire like those first games did, because, again, they're too easy. You know, it took me a year to get to top level in EverQuest, and that's playing 18 hours a day, nonstop. I could do that in 4 days in TISO.
Yeah, you've mentioned both PvE and PvP content. What types of MMO content do you most enjoy?
PvP, I think, is my favorite, and I'm not talking about arena-type combat from WoW or Battlegrounds. I can play Battlegrounds, and I do enjoy Battlegrounds every now and then. It's nice to be able to sit down at the computer at 4 in the morning and join a queue and get into a game and just, you know, kick some butt for the sake of kicking some butt. But the main thing that really has always attracted me to PvP was the big scope, the almost kind of I don't want to call it a PvP sandbox, but it kind of is a PvP sandbox where you're in an open area, anything goes. And you know, Dark Age Camelot had that for me. Had these huge frontiers where everything went, and you know, it was just PvP, PvP, PvP. And you even had games like Shadowbane, which some people may actually remember the game was a horrible game, but it was a great PvP concept, and the fact that the whole world was PvP, and when you died, you lost everything. Ultima Online brings that too, you know, so there's some of these older PvP games that are just, I guess you could almost say, truly are very gruesome for the players who, get killed in them because, well, the loss is so great. But it makes winning that much more special, and it makes having what you have that much more special. But so PvP is definitely my favorite overall. But I do love raiding. I loved organized raiding.
Okay. Cibriel wanted to know, in MMOs, what is usually your favorite class and why?
Depends on what I'm playing. In PvP, I've always enjoyed being the more sneakier. Probably just because my personality is more of a sneaky person. I like being sneaky from range. So like in Dayak, I was a ranger. It's a stealth archer, basically. Really enjoyed that till they nerfed the heck out of my class. But before then, I was really having fun with it. And then in PvE, I really like casters. Don't know why. It probably goes back to my EverQuest days where, playing a necromancer, I like being able to control everything, every aspect of the fight, whether it's the mob's positioning. I like being able to control when they die. If I want to fight 7 different mobs at once, I want to be able to have all 7 of them under control and just kind of sit back and do my thing. And the caster, and especially like games like EverQuest, the caster enabled you to do that with a lot of CC and a lot of POW damage spells. Whereas, in PvE, I'm not much of a melee person. I don't like to get into melee. I like to kind of sit back and blow from range and just control the fight. But in PvP, I'm very much kind of an up-close and personal guy. I like to be, either ranged archer or, like an assassin. Get in there and get out as quick as possible. My personality in PvP is get in there, kill them, make them cry, and then be gone before they realize what hit them.
Yeah, I can feel that. There's always a great degree of satisfaction you can get from having a lot of CC abilities, a lot of control over a fight.
Yeah, and it also kind of goes back to, and to really answer his question the best, the reason why I have the desire to play, casters in PvE and the stealthers in PvP is I am really kind of a soloer. I will get in these big raids, and I do enjoy leading the raids, and I enjoy playing with a bunch of people, but I also like to get on at 3 or 4 in the morning and do my thing by myself, where, a stealther in PvP is obviously a more soloable character because you can get to pick your fights, theoretically. And then in PvE, with all your CC and high damage, the casters that have good CC and high damage tend to be more soloable classes. They tend to also have pets and so forth. It allows them to kind of survive situations. But, one of my strongest desires as a player has always been to find situations that I'm not supposed to be able to solo and do it easily, and camp it and farm it. And that's what I did in EQ. In PvP, finding myself as a one-player solo, getting in the fights 1 versus 3s, 1 versus 2s, 2-on-1s, and winning the fight as the one was always a great satisfaction of mine as well. So soloing has always been a thing for me, and will always be a thing for me. But I also, like to be able to take that same class that I play during the day and join it with my guild and still have a function to perform, although arguably with a solo stealther you're not quite as functionable in a group setting. That's why you become the leader of that group and direct people, and you're not having to participate as much. Just pick off the stragglers.
Alright, for our next several questions, they're going to start getting a little more random and topic as I try to take some of the questions from the community members a little more often. Itaki wanted to know, what is the funniest thing you have ever seen happen or heard happen to a Legend Gaming member in-game?
That's a tough question because, nothing's coming to mind. That's not to say that we haven't had a lot of funny stuff happen, but nothing's really popping into my mind right now is hilarious. That really kind of caught me by surprise. I can think of a lot of things back in the old WoW and EQ days, but not so.
Outside of Legend Gaming itself, what about just in gaming in general?
Well, we always had a lot of fun in the big raids back in EQ and WoW. But the funniest things really in EverQuest were the trains and being part of the trains. Trains basically when you have about 15 or 20 monsters following you around, And they don't de-aggro in EverQuest, so they follow you, and whoever you run by, they might aggro onto them too. So you have these people running around with 30 mobs following them around, and they'll yell, train, 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 everyone get the hell out of my way, I've got a train. And watching everyone scramble was pretty funny. Those who didn't scramble, it wasn't so funny for them, but those were always really funny to watch, and especially in big raid environments when you send your puller off to go get something, and he comes back, and he's lighting up tells, and he's like, hey, just want to let you know I screwed up. And you're having this conversation with your puller who went into the other room to pull, and you're like, okay, well, what's wrong? Yeah, I've got about 50 giants on me right now. What do you want me to do? I'm like, die? He's like, oh, too late, I brought them. I'm like, okay. So now we've got 50 giants on the raid, and the raid is obviously in chaos. So just watching your casters run around like they're being chased, about to be mugged by these big giants. We still have fond memories of watching our casters run around crazy, like during a mist pull, so to speak. And just watching them all. I mean, I've watched casters, instead of dying, I had this one caster, he was an enchanter, he was a Mezzer, but he never liked to die. For some odd reason, none of us like to die, but his thing was he would rather jump into lava than get killed by a mob. And we explained to him several times, you can jump into lava to avoid dying, but you're still going to die, and now we can't get your corpse. But just to watch him jump in lava to avoid mobs. It was pretty funny. Obviously, you have to kind of be there to see it and to understand the comedy of it, but it can be pretty chaotic.
I could just picture that, the giant charging down. I mean, nope, lava time.
I did remember a pretty interesting and funny event from Hand of Set, which is Legend Gaming, is we had an ongoing feud with another guild, and I won't name them because I don't want to embarrass them in my spotlight. But they were out there talking trash to some of our members, and of course our members very politely warned them, look, if you guys don't leave us alone and let us do what we're going to do, the guild's going to come in here and just eat y'all. And they were like, oh, whatever, your guild's all talk, whatever. And it was just I can still remember when we crested the hill with about 50 people, because we were bored, and watched those 4 guys just stand there and they really watched us charge them. Like, if they'd had facial expressions, it would have been jaw on the floor. And, of course, the fight was 0.3 seconds long. And then, of course, we played with their corpses for a while, but that was pretty funny.
Obligatory taunting over the corpse.
Yeah, and I think what made it even funnier is basically we charged them maybe less than 15 to 20 seconds after they said your guild's all talk. We just happened to be in the area looking. We were on our way to do something, a raid or something. We just happened to be driving through it when they said, and it just kind of happened to happen right at that moment. It was completely coincidental, and I'm sure they were thinking, why me? Why did it had to happen right when I said that. They're probably.
Speaking of memories, Rim would like to know what your most memorable moment is in an MMO.
Oh man, I had a lot of good memories in EverQuest. I played a Necro, and my roommate in college played a Druid, and we would go, we'd play, 20 hours a day, so everyone on the server knew us. And our whole goal was to find situations that there's no way 2 people could do and do it. And always staying within the confines of the game rules. I mean, you can't really accuse us of exploiting or anything. But we would find a way. And let's just leave it at that. And but, we'd go around and help people out too. For some odd reason, still to this day don't know why we got the nickname The Saints. But that was our nickname. For some odd reason, they always called us the Saints, and we weren't good. We didn't do good deeds or anything. I just don't know why they called us that. I think that might have been around the time that movie came out, Boondock Saints, and those 2 guys were pretty bad. Maybe that's why we got that name. Now I'm starting to kind of remember. Anyway, we got that nickname. We had some great memories doing some stuff, and people would, see us farming an area, and they would try to kill us because, well, we were almost unkillable. And so, going back to the whole train issue, people would train the heck out of us trying to kill us just to say, yeah, we killed the Saints. No, Not really. Never happened. But it was really, we had a lot of good memories. Had a lot of great memories in Daok and PvP. Too many to name. We could be here all night talking about each situation and each story. So I'll try to keep the one little story I tell to Legend Gaming. And basically we had a great PvP battle. I don't even remember I don't even remember the name of the zone. It's one of the end zones in Hand of Set. Someone will probably remember it. Starts with a K. And we had this huge battle. A couple of our group people got jumped, and so we brought the guild in to handle it. And of course, they brought their guild, and then their guild, everyone hated Hand of Set on the server because I guess being number one, people don't like you so much. And so they had formed this huge alliance against us. It was all over the forums. Everyone knew that all these guilds were allied against Hand of Set. Hand of Set was all by its lonesome. We did have one guild that liked Subway. I don't remember the name of them neither, but someone probably will remember. Anyway, they when I say they liked Subway, they'd get on the forums, and anytime someone tried to bash us or them, they would jingle off a Subway commercial to them. It was really kind of funny. But anyway, it was... they came in and helped us a little bit, but they only had like 3 or 4 people. And it ended up being about 50 or 60 of us against maybe 300 to 400 people. I'm not exaggerating. And we pushed them all the way back to the respawn and camped them for a good 30 to 40 minutes before we finally all shook hands and said, night's over. But that was a very memorable and fun night to watch Hand of Set, Legend Gaming guys get together, organized. We weren't more powerful than them level-wise. We were just 10,000 times more organized than them. They had a lot of numbers, but they couldn't beat the organization. And that's what we try to do around here, is just be more organized than our foe. The more organized you are, the more you win. And that night was pretty much one of the hallmark moments of Legend Gaming, is to be able to defeat such a force with such a small force.
Okay, a friend has actually had a question relating to a nickname, or nicknames you had gotten in MMO, so I guess we've taken care of that. But he did have another question about what you would say is your greatest achievement in a computer game.
Well, I did have, we had the nickname the Saints in EverQuest, and I didn't really have a nickname in Daok, but my greatest achievement would be in Daok, probably, would be, they did their leveling system in PvP. They called it realm rank. My little ranger was the first person to achieve the top realm rank in the game, and up until I retired, was the highest grossing. I had more realm points than any other player in the game, and that's worldwide. That's not just my server. So I guess you could say I was top in the world in PvP. As far as points goes, that doesn't necessarily mean I could beat everybody one-on-one or anything, but as far as points go, I had the most. That's probably my greatest accomplishment, that being such a die-hard game with so many die-hard players.
On the subject of PvP, Archer would like to know, what is your most noteworthy PvP kill, or the one you're most proud of?
I still remember this fight. It was just me, and I actually wasn't on my ranger. I was on my little nightshade in Dark Age of Camelot. I had a nightshade too, but he wasn't nearly as high up as my ranger as far as PvP rank. But he was every bit as potent. But I was by myself, and I was Hibernian, for those who know Daok. And then, of course, I was out in E-Main. Daok people again will recognize that name. And there was... The Albions had 2 assassins. Well, I take that back. One was a minstrel, and one was an infiltrator, or their assassin class. They were both stealthers, so you never knew where they were. And they were pretty much kind of like me and my roommate were in EverQuest, unkillable. They'd take down groups by themselves. Dynamic duo, whatever you want to call them, people hated them. And in that game, when people died in PvP, it would put up in the chat, so-and-so was just killed by, so-and-so was just killed by. And you would see their spam all over your chat box, and people would say, crap, they're out. And to this day, I just can't remember their name. Ask me a year ago, I might have remembered, but it's been almost 10 years. But people would say, they're out. And you would do either one or two things. You would leave the zone and go find something else to do because you couldn't beat them. Or you would try to put together a lynch mob full of, as many people as you could get and try to hunt them down. Of course, them being stealthers, they could play the waiting game until you got bored of looking for them, and then they'd go back to doing what they do, which is exactly what I did when I was solo. But I decided, you know what, I'm bored, I'm going to go look for them all by my lonesome. And I found them on a hill with some trees, and they were there. I got the jump on them because they were both stealth sitting there, and I came up behind them, and I just saw them before they saw me. They saw me almost roughly the same time I saw them, and the minstrel turned towards me as if to shout me to knock me out of stealth, and I got my perforate artery off of what we called the PA, which is a stealth opening move from the front. It was also the hardest hitting ability, and I got it off on him. It was just perfect timing. I just came up the right angle, and everything was almost luck. And I was able to take him down with his infiltrator buddy friend on me. I used every ability I had, all my timers, and I got the minstrel down, and I got the infiltrator down to maybe about 3% life. Right as I was about to die, I was able to hit that potion button, and he'd already used his potion, and I got the kill, and I had 2% life at the end of that battle, but I took down the dynamic duo. And, of course, that being in chat, people can see that I just killed the dynamic duo. People were obviously asking me, where are you at, man? You got a bunch of people with you? I'm like, no, by myself. I got them. They were over here. No, you did it by yourself? I'm like, yep. So it was like, that my little Nightshade didn't got a reputation. Of course, my main already had the reputation as being the highest level PvP guy. But, it was a very awesome fight, and probably one of the greatest fights I've been in, just because it was, a good 5 minutes of grueling fighting those guys, and just sweat coming down. I mean, after the fight was over, I was soaking wet in real life. I was just wet sweat. It was gruesome. It was tough, but it was a great win.
Yeah, some of those PvP fights really get the adrenaline going. Can't say I've ever had one that drenched me in sweat, but I don't think I've ever had one where I jumped in there and had such a noteworthy kill either.
Yeah, fighting the two most notorious guys, and at the same time, it was I didn't expect to win, but that's sometimes, and some of you PvPers can understand this. Sometimes when you go in crazy, like not expecting to win, is when you actually do win. And sometimes when you try to go in and be too careful and plot things out too much, you get get overwhelmed and killed. But it's sometimes going in there expecting, almost kind of pulling a Leroy Jenkins, is when you look around and like, damn, I just won. How the hell did I do that? It's those moments that you kind of are really cool. But again, play that fight over 100 times, I'd have probably lost it 98 out of 100. But getting the right angle and everything on that time, I could have beaten either one of them solo any day. But getting them together like that was almost impossible for a little Nightshade, no matter how good. And I was pretty happy that it happened that way.
Yeah, sometimes you get that boost of adrenaline. You just hit all the right ability, at the right times.
Now I was in a trance, I guess. I don't know what happened, but it was played perfectly.
All right, moving back off the subject of PvP into kind of more general subjects of games and legend gaming. Ajdaha wants to know if there's a game on the horizon that you feel may have gotten it right again.
No. I'm sorry. No, there's really not. EverQuest Next is obviously the one that we're all kind of sitting around, and it's not just me, it's the whole community. And it's not just the whole community, it's really the whole MMO genre is right now just kind of sitting around watching that game. And Sony Online Entertainment is definitely doing it right. They've gotten quite good at advertising. They've really been around they're one of the oldest MMO companies. I think Funcom and SOE really are two of the older ones, but I mean they have been advertising this game. It is all over the place, and it's got more of a following now really than even TSO does, which is kind of funny. But it's a game that could possibly do it, but again, I'm not sure. They did just do an interview with the developing team, and the developing team did say some things that kind of, made me go, really? That's awesome. And one of the things they said is they were asked if they were going to, do the new trend where your role in game is kind of account based, and you can be in multiple guilds, much like what Guild Wars 2 did and what the Elder Scrolls Online did, and Sony Online Entertainment guys kind of looked at them and said, "What? No, it's just one character, one guild, and your character is defined by your character, not your account." And that kind of got me feeling good again. I'm like, okay, maybe these guys are listening. Maybe they're going to go back to the good stuff. We'll see. They've got some really cool ideas that haven't been done before. Don't know how those will play out. But I think if there's any game coming out that could possibly be semi-successful in this very watered-down, mundane genre now, it might be that game. But it's too early to tell.
I didn't actually know they had come out with a interview today. I'll have to check that out.
It wasn't today. I saw it on Facebook. It was maybe last week. I think I saw it Thursday or Wednesday of last week.
Oh, last week? I don't know how I've missed it this long, though.
I'll dig it up for you if I can find it.
Alright, I have 2 more questions left. First one is from Tarek, and he wants to know, this is going back to Legend Gaming, he wants to know, you've already talked about the original vision for Legend Gaming, to keep the solid gamers from the different guilds that we play together, so that we have kind of a gaming core, we keep playing games with our friends from game to game. He wants to know if you think that LG has met that vision or evolved into something else unexpected.
I think that LG has not been what I expected. I can't say that. I didn't expect Legend Gaming to be around 6 years later. I certainly didn't expect to be sitting here in 2013 as a somewhat gray and old man still hanging with Legend Gaming. Did not expect that. That's not because I thought, Legend Gaming was going to be good. I just, gaming communities do not stay around for 6 years normally. There are exceptions out there. One of our competitors, Acolytes, is still around. Different leadership, different people, but they're still there, and then of course you got some of the big ones, some of the big the goon squads and the communities like that have been around for as long as us, if not longer in most cases. But those are kind of exceptions to the rule, and I didn't expect Legend Gaming to be that exception. I didn't think that we would be able to hold it together that long, and to see that still sitting here in 2013 is quite impressive to me, especially keeping in mind that those other communities play games like Call of Duty, Team Fortress. They're in everything. League of Legends. Legend Gaming is just MMO. And there are very few MMO-only communities out there still alive, mainly because the MMO genre is so bad right now. Legend Gaming has definitely survived some of the worst years for games, and when it comes to this genre, it's just been, and that's very, I still don't understand how we've survived this long. We have not had a successful MMO really since our birth, and yet we're still here. As far as keeping our members together, we've kept a lot of members together, but we have not been as successful as I'd like to have been. People come and go, and that's the truth of it. You go look at our elder board, we've got 10, 11 elders. That's pretty good. But how many of those people are actually here from Hand of Set? 1, 2, 3. Astaha is one of them, but Barrett over in Vokundein is one of them. But, we really don't have, Sanakti and myself, we really don't have a ton of people from the original Hand of Set. So, really, with both your hands, you can count the people that were here when the original Legend Gaming was formed, and that's less than 10 people. So, have we been successful? When Legend Gaming was formed, we had nearly 300 people, and only 10 are really still left. Now, granted, we still have, over 100 members to the community, but they're fresh faces in many cases. Granted, 7, you're not fresh face anymore, but you were just a few years ago. So it's, when we're talking 6 years, we haven't been as successful as I'd like to be, but we've been as successful as I could expect us to be, keeping 60, 70 people and an extremely strong core of people together for 6 years. Is near impossible.
Yeah, especially with the nature of games and the gamers, and real life comes up for all of us. As you said before, it makes gaming actively and very hardcore kind of difficult.
Yeah, and I mean, if we had games like let's think when WoW came onto the scene and how largely popular it was, and it's survived 10, 12 years. When was it came out in 2000 and was it 2004? My years are off tonight, but it's been around almost quite a while, almost a decade. So it's if you had games like that come out. Remember, Legend Gaming missed the WoW boat by a few years. We didn't get involved in it because it was already out. Heck, I came from WoW guilds to form this, so it was after WoW, basically. Legend Gaming is a post-WoW community. But if we had games like WoW that could stand the test of time, then we may have been more successful in keeping our members around. And it's almost a tip of the hat to Legend Gaming for games like the Old Republic Online, which was, pretty much a god-awful game. Some people liked it, but to your hardcore PvPers and PvEers, it wasn't what it needed to be. Yet, we were able to stay in that game for years, and able to be the best on the server for years, and stay together for years in that game. And that's a tip of the hat to Legend Gaming right there, We were really the only guild left on that server that was there from the beginning.
Yeah, I definitely watched a lot of other guilds, especially some pre-launch guilds that were pretty large at one point, fold under pretty quick once that game launched.
Yeah, and that's not necessarily their fault. It was a bad game, but again, and we knew it was a bad game. We were sitting in it. We were playing it. As we played it, and we know this game stinks, but we're here for each other, and that's really where Legend Gaming has kept its goal, and that is its dedication to each other, and that's why this community was able to stay in that game for so long. And even going farther back to Age of Conan, where you had a game that was even worse than the Old Republic, it was just bug-ridden, almost unplayable at the beginning. Yet we had a set stayed around in that game for over a year, and remained competitor for a while. And that's, again, the Legend Gaming members were dedicated to each other. They wanted to stay with each other, and it was the only game they had out, so let's play it, and that's where that sense of brotherhood, sisterhood comes from. And I don't know what the Elder Scrolls is going to be like. I don't know what the World of Darkness is going to be like, and I don't know what WildStar is going to be like. But hopefully, even if they're bad games, we'll still be there for a while, just because our members will want to stay with their brothers and sisters and play and have something to do with each other.
Couldn't have said it better myself. For my last question, before I let you run off for the night, if you could, I would like for you to tell everyone a bit about yourself as a person rather than as a gamer.
Well, I mean, my personality is pretty much like it is in game. It's just kind of I don't know, brash sometimes, temperamental, but loyal and, fair, and very kind of person that can sit down and talk to you about just about anything in this world. I like to, remind the members as much as I can that, there's nothing that you can tell me that I haven't been told before. If you got something bothering you and you want to talk to me, don't be scared. I mean, you see what I do for a living, right? So, dealing with baby daddies and baby mamas fighting and shooting at each other and crying, and it's a normal thing for me. And that's pretty much, I guess, what my personality is in real life, is I find myself to be, throughout the day, a part psychologist, part judge, and that's kind of where I am in the game as well. I try to help out the members as much as I can, talk to them, but also there's times that I just have to outright judge them and, either remove them, give them warnings, whatever I got to do, But really, my personality can be best described as I'm kind of a black and white personality. You're either wrong or you're right. There's no middle ground with me. And, that's kind of how we run the community. We got that hardcore code of conduct that everyone thinks is so hardcore. It's really not. But, you're either living by it or you're not. And if you're not living by it, then you're not living here, so to speak.
All right. Well, I want to thank you again for taking the time to speak with me, and have a good night.
You too, man.
For everyone else, thank you for tuning in and listening to the Spotlight with Drahl, the Godfather. If you haven't checked out Legend Gaming, we have chapters in World of Darkness, The Elder Scrolls Online, and WildStar Online, so check us out at legend-gaming.net.